Here we go. Did you all see the button? Yes, 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 yes. Okay. So welcome everybody. My name is Julia. My pronouns are she and her. I am one of the EOP advisors here on campus. I will be moderating today's conversation with our amazing staff from the Division of Graduate Studies. And before I introduce our guest speakers, I would love to introduce Janie. Janie, can you introduce yourself as well?
Hi everyone, can you hear me? Because I'm using my AirPods, so sometimes they're a little bit funky when I'm, in my meetings. But hi everyone, I'm Janie. I am a new EOP advisor. I just started here in December, so fairly new. But I graduated from SF State. I got my bachelor's in psychology and a minor in counseling. So for all my psych majors out there, I very much feel you. It's a difficult process, but you get through it. And yeah, I love EOP. I'm so excited to hear what our panelists have to say today.
Janie's also looking into grad programs, so, reach out to us. A lot of our EOP staff actually earned our graduate degrees while working here at SF State, and that's also one of the options that we're going to talk about when it comes to funding. But reach out to us, please. Like, we are a wealth of knowledge and firsthand experience, and sometimes when you Google search things, there's a million results. You have no idea where to begin. So come talk to us. We're all friendly. Okay. Again, our EOP office has a lot of snacks. We will bribe you to come in. Okay. Um, I would love for the three speakers, the panelists, to please introduce yourselves. So I would love if you could say your name, your pronouns, your title at the Division of Graduate Studies, and also any like educational background. And then one fun thing would be what meal makes you the most nostalgic when you have it, or what meal reminds you of home? So I would love if Katrina could go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone, and thank you for inviting me to this workshop. My name is Katrina Echon, pronouns she, they, and I'm the Associate Director of Graduate Admissions and Academic Services. Sorry, it's a long title. And I am full-on SF Gator undergrad and grad. Got my undergrad in photojournalism, so I worked in the Express magazine and everything here. And I did my master's in education, equity, and social justice. Still working on my thesis, but I finished all my classes.
You got this. You got this.
Thank you. Okay, meal, I would say Spam, rice, and eggs, and I'm still eating it to this day.
Hell yeah. Hell yes. Thank you, Katrina. Summer, would you like to go next? You're still muted.
There we go. Sorry, I lost the unmute button there for a second. Hi, everyone. My name is Summer. I'm the graduate admissions coordinator here in the Division of Grad Studies. I use she, they pronouns. I am a alum of grad school at SF State. I got my master's degree in social psychology, so shout out to my psychology people. You know how rough that world can be, but yeah, definitely here to answer questions on what does that look like, grad school options. And then yeah, meal. Kim and I were chatting about this in the office. I'm gonna have to go with Dino Nuggets, and like Katrina, still eating that to this day. It is my favorite, nostalgic, just comfort food all around. 10 out of 10.
Definition of comfort food. And last but not least, Kim.
Hey everyone, thanks again for having us here to provide this presentation. My name is Kim. I use she, they pronouns. I am a continuing student specialist, so I help graduate students after they're admitted to their point of graduation. I got my master's here at SF State as well. I got my master's of education in equity and social justice. And a meal that reminds me of my youth would be a spam subi, also something that I still eat to this day. I'm not giving it up. It's staple now.
Should Never give that up. Thank you, everyone. We want to again say a big welcome to the Division of Graduate Studies and a big thank you as well for taking time out of your busy schedules to come and chat with our students who are all first-gen low-income students, many of whom are juniors and seniors and starting this journey toward what is life going to look like after we graduate. So a little bit of a disclaimer. Please attend your program's info session and make an appointment to meet with your respective program coordinators. Okay, what we cover today is a very general overview, and every program has its own admissions criteria. So that means that what may work for SF State Psych program may not work for, let's say, UC San Diego Psych program. Okay, even though they're the same major, right? And also like every school has different concentrations. And so like, because everything is so specific, please make sure you do the research on individual programs. I also like this little part down here. We always like to say in all these AMAs, go see the program experts. We are just mere mortals. Okay. So I'm going to hand this over to Kim, who's going to share the presentation with you all, and we'll come back to the Q&A afterward.
Yeah, thanks. So definitely check in with the program experts. Again, we're mere mortals. What we'll be going over today is very general information. So I'm going to quickly go through a presentation just so that we have time for everyone's more specific questions. So here we go. Okay, can everyone see the event? Perfect. Okay, so yeah, we're going to go just over some general information again about SF State graduate education. So why do we say SF State? It's a place where you belong. You can find your particular program. I think like the equity and social justice is very specific, but it's something that resonates, with San Francisco as a whole. So as far as going to graduate school, you can find very specific programs that fit your interests. The faculty here are have very broad topics that they've researched, that they've gone into. So SF State is a place where you feel like you can belong, not just in your program, but with your cohorts, with your peers, colleagues. And why SF State? So we're going to go over a little bit about like the campus life, academics, where we're at, because we're in a pretty prime location in the Bay Area, and the student services that you can take advantage of as a graduate student. So why attend graduate school? Some of you might already know that for your profession, the bachelor's degree is not enough. A lot of professions now, especially, will require at the very least a master's degree. For some of you, you will continue on to a doctoral degree, maybe even a professional degree. But a huge reason could be, the difference between salary of someone who has just a bachelor's degree and your master's degree. There's already a $20,000 difference there, and then considerable differences for each higher education degree you get after that. And another reason, earnings and unemployment rates, as you get higher in your degrees, there's less of a chance of unemployment. You're more ready to be hired at organizations, companies, especially if you specialize in something and they're looking for that particular skill. Your master's and doctoral professional degrees will all help you with that. So some popular programs at SF State, we have the MBA program, computer science, engineering. I think I did see a question about cinema, so the MFA in cinema, biology, international relations. I think we also have a few psychology majors here in this meeting, broadcast and electronic communications, and of course, education is also a very popular one. Social work is another popular graduate degree here at SF State, and that's also offered. So SF State is accredited by the Accrediting Commission for Senior Colleges and Universities of the Western Association of Schools and Colleges. Now that's really important. A lot of organizations, companies will want to know whether or not your program was accredited for any students who might be considering nursing. it is vital that your program is accredited by the appropriate accrediting bodies. Sometimes they won't recognize your degree otherwise. So you definitely want to consider, as far as like red flags, I think was a question in the Google Forms. What's a red flag is if the school is not accredited. You definitely want to double check that. SF State is one of those accredited schools. We also have state-of-the-art facilities and research centers. I don't know if either Summer or Katrina want to speak on any of the things that are listed here, but there are research centers that the programs use specifically. Katrina, Summer, do you want to add anything? No?
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of different organizations on campus. As you can see, we have like the Becca Studio, and it's Marcus Hall is a brand new creative arts building with all new facilities and studios there. And also the Tiburon Center, which is across the Golden Gate Bridge. It's a really nice campus. It's mostly for students who are working on marine biology research. And they have specific labs there as well, and all these different labs that departments and programs are doing on campus.
Cool. Thanks, Katrina. Okay, and we also have world-class faculty. So our faculty hold doctoral degrees from top universities around the world. Just in like the education program, we have doctorates from UC Berkeley, a lot of the UC campuses, Yale, Stanford. When you think of all of those top universities, a lot of our faculty will hold their doctorates from there. And then they're also, still doing their research. So they are still very much in the industry. So when you're talking to people about or to your faculty members about like, what should I consider for my research or what do I need to know to make a break in this industry? They are the experts because they're still very much in their industry. So the time frame, you're looking at about 24 months. On average, you're taking about 3 courses per semester, and the average program will require 30 to 33 total credits, except for the MFA, MSW, and MBA programs, which will require anywhere from 30 to 60 total credits. Your coursework will have your foundation courses that are determined by the program, electives that are approved by your program, and then your culminating experience at the end. Your huge project that you're either doing research on, maybe doing a literature review, a curriculum for, any of those great last projects for your program. For the schedule, it's really going to depend on your program. Some of them may have day courses, but I think for a lot of the graduate programs, you're looking at evening courses because they're trying to accommodate a lot of working professionals. So people who have jobs from 9 to 5, they provide the classes for after that. And the average cost, again, it'll depend per your program, but you're looking at about $15K each year for 8 units per semester and about $22K for the MBA, MSA, and MSBA. Cool. So learning and excellence at SF State, like we mentioned, there's going to be your lectures, you have your class projects. Some programs even have internships. I think Summer had mentioned that in her psych program, there were guest lectures that came every week. Summer, is that right? Yeah, and then hands-on mentored research training with rigorous coursework. And then some programs have cohorts where you're combined with your peers, and you can just network through there, create those connections just from attending your classes. So the general university requirements, so you are required to hold a bachelor's degree. If you're an international student, the equivalent to a 4-year US bachelor's degree, and a minimum 3.0 GPA. I don't know if either Summer or Katrina want to speak on the exceptions to this particular rule.
Yeah, I could talk a little bit. So, if you're considering grad school and you're going, I don't think I meet that 3.0 GPA necessarily, what our division's going to do is we're actually going to look at your last 60 units. So the most recent courses you've taken, and we're going to calculate your GPA. Typically for students, that GPA does look a little bit higher than their overall GPA, and hopefully that bumps you to that at least 3.0 B average. And this goes for both domestic and international students. If you're still not at that 3.0, don't count yourself out just yet. Departments will sometimes approve a petition if you don't meet this minimum requirement and accept students on a conditional basis. conditional phase.
Can I just add something to
For
that?
sure.
Yeah, don't stress too much on the GPA because programs they do a holistic type of evaluation on your application. They're not just going to rely on your GPA to see if you're a good fit. They're going to look at other things, mostly your personal statements and letters of recommendations. So don't stress out. And like Summer said, we do look at the last 60 because we know that a lot of students do a lot better in the last 2 years of their semester versus the first 2 years.
Yeah, last 60 saved me. I did not do that well in my first and second year of undergraduate. Yeah, and then the English requirement, is this just for international students? I don't know if either of you want to clarify here.
Yeah, so that English requirement is just going to be for international students who don't have a degree from an exempt country. And so we accept like TOEFL, Duolingo, IELTS, anything like that. And, you can find more information on this link. And there's a copy of these slides in the chat if you want to download that to look at the links.
Awesome. Thank you both. And like Julia mentioned before, you do want to still be aware of your program requirements. So there are general university requirements, but your program might still require writing samples, a portfolio if you're thinking of any type of MFA program, supplemental forms. Definitely the personal statement, I think, is across the board, as well as letters of recommendation. But if you're going into a very specific professional type degree, then you want to see if there's anything else that they require of you. Like for nursing, they might have the NCLEX that you need to submit alongside all of your other applications. But yeah, so definitely look at the site, go to any information sessions to double check what you need just for your admission requirements. Cool. And how to apply. So definitely take a look at the different programs. There are different concentrations. So you might think, I just want to get my master's of English, but there are like 5 different concentrations. So what exactly are you looking to study, and maybe what is the objective for getting this degree for you? Because that might also help you decide. And then once you kind of decide, or if you're still exploring, you can also schedule an appointment at Graduate Studies. There are appointments for program exploration, appointments on how to have a better application, how to improve your application. And if you have quick questions on like the admissions process, you can always schedule an appointment for that as well. And then definitely submit your application through Cal State Apply. It's going to look pretty similar, I think, to what your undergraduate looked like, the same little bubbles that you have to fill out. But if you do have questions, you can always schedule an appointment. And we do want to plug the career services, career development and support office, because we did combine with them. So we've merged. So we're right next to each other now. It kind of makes sense, right? If you're doing your graduate studies and you're hoping that it leads to a career of some sort, you definitely want to take advantage of both offices. So they do hold a lot of workshops and events. They just had their part-time job fair, and I think they're having another one in April, a bigger job fair. So definitely, if you're close to graduation, or if you're looking for any type of work experience, make your way over to, I think it's going to be at Mashoof, to attend that event. They provide assistance with internships. You can make an appointment for career counseling and resume work. So there's VMOC online, but if you need actual assistance with how to improve your resume, make an appointment with the career counselors. Yeah, they're very friendly, super happy to help students find a job, whether it's on campus or an outside organization. Cool. And so that's the end of our presentation. You can always reach out to us at gradstudies@sfsu.edu or by phone. And if you happen to be on campus, you can also drop by.
Thank you for that presentation. I love that we are so on time. Like, we're doing excellent, y'all. So thank you for the overview. What I'd love to do now is have more of a guided Q&A. So when students were RSVPing for this event, they were given the option of submitting questions that they have been working on or accumulating. And so we organize them based more on category. And so we have quite a few here, and we'll go through as many as possible before 1 o'clock. And at 1 o'clock, we will thank our panelists and let them go on with their busy day, but we will leave this room open in case students still have any follow-up questions, okay? So I'm going to share my screen and we will go over the first question, I should say. Okay. What are the benefits of going to graduate school? So you talked about that in the presentation, but I guess maybe if we could clarify what the difference between a master's and PhD program is. Like, there are some programs that go straight to PhD. There are also programs that, have dual tracks. Like, how do we determine which one is the better fit for us?
Yeah, I'll start answering this one. So PhD programs is research intensive. So if you're really into research and you want to work on a specific research or work with people who are doing research, you'd want to go to a PhD program. So that's what I think is mainly the big difference between the two. The benefits of going to graduate school, just like Kim said in our slides, salary ranges are a lot better if you have a higher degree. But also, I also think that, let's say, if you have a specific interest and you just want to hone on that interest and you want to do research, you want to focus on elevating yourself, leveling yourself up in this subject, go to a master's program. Or if you decided that you finish your undergrad and you're like, I don't think this is the way, this is where I want to go after maybe a couple of years of working in that field. You could always come back. You don't necessarily need to go back and do another undergrad. You can just go straight into a master's program and maybe just have to take a couple prerequisite courses.
I think that point is so important of how there's no one timeline for you to consider graduate school. And also, it's not just one program that you do that you are trapped in for life, right? If things change, you are more than welcome to go back to school. We now work in an environment where people are changing jobs and careers every year. So again, there's no right time to do graduate school. If it's something you want to do, trust your gut. You'll know if and when you are ready, and go for it then. Anyone else want to mention anything about the master's versus PhD? No. Okay, moving on. Next question. Ooh, where do I start when it comes to looking for the right program? Should I have more than one graduate program in mind? Right? That's kind of one big question. And then what I absolutely love that a student submitted was, are there also red flags I should be mindful of? That's such a great question. So we'll start with the first half, which is, where do we even begin? Right?
Yeah,
I've decided I want to go to grad school. What do I do now?
Yeah, this is an awesome question. Couple of questions. These are all, thinking in the right direction. I know I have a psych background, but this is still applicable for other majors as well. Sometimes in undergrad, you're kind of in a program that is very like grad school driven. Psych is one of those majors where it's kind of like in classes always talked about like grad school, PhD, PhD. So as an undergrad, like how do you decide, okay, do I want to get my master's first? Do I want to go to PhD? Do I even want to go to grad school? Something to consider is like, what do you want to do down the line? Like, what career path are you interested in? Are you interested in being academia? Kind of what Katrina was talking about with like research and kind of hopping on like a research project. Are you more interested going into the professional route? And so that's a good way to start looking at like which degree is going to get you to which career path. Certain career paths are going to require a master's degree or a PhD, depending on what type of field you're looking into. I know for like education and nursing, there's very specific credentials that you have to have obtained. So that's a good kind of way to filter out a lot of schools and a lot of different programs. I know for us, we have like more than one psych program. So then how do you decide between those two? A master's program could be a good step for students who are considering that PhD. Like Katrina said, things get really narrow and specific with research. Programs start to get really narrow, specific once you get into that PhD level. So a master's is a good foundation on getting those research skills, getting those presentation skills, and amping up your resume and your CV to apply to those PhD programs.
I could answer the second part. All right, should I have more than one graduate? Yeah, I'd say have a backup program because, especially if you're going to go for a program that's very competitive in or also go into a school that's pretty competitive too. And grad programs, depending on the school and the size of faculty they have, they will only select maybe 20 students every year. So that's going to be pretty competitive, right? And so you want to have a backup program just in case you don't get into the program of your choice that's that's similar to your program of choice. So like for our counseling programs, we have about like 3 or 4 concentrations, and they all admit maybe no more than 20 each. And we get about I'm looking at over maybe 300 applications every year for those programs. So some students, when they don't get admitted to our counseling program, they always email me saying, hey, can I switch my application to social work or to speech language pathology?
And then the last question on this slide, are there red flags we should be mindful of? So what I love about this is, yes, we always want to think about what we are looking for in this program. But there are things that we want to consider because sometimes if you apply to a million schools, for instance, the financial implication of that, or if it's out of state, or if you're applying just for the hell of it instead of doing your research. But what are red flags maybe we should be aware of in terms of like institutions wise or anything like that?
I mean, not to besmirch any other institution, but I do want students to be aware of like for-profit institutions, maybe. So ones where the degree is not necessarily transferable, or yeah, I would say just be on the lookout for, like we had mentioned before, an accredited program. So just because you're getting emails about it, doesn't make it necessarily a good program for you. Look into it. As far as red flags, I think there's a lot for you to consider. Is it somewhere that, like Julia mentioned, that you're just applying to, or is this somewhere like if you got into a school in Chicago, are you willing to go there, to travel there, to find housing there? Are you willing to pay out of state tuition there? So instead of maybe thinking about it as a red flag, maybe like really consider what is it that you want out of your program? Where do you want to be at the end of your program? And definitely check if the program itself is accredited, if it's going towards the career that you want. So yeah, that would be my 2 cents on the red flags.
Yeah, not just like another little snippet. I think when considering programs, if you apply to a couple of schools, and maybe you've got into multiple schools and now you're having to consider like which school, which program, I always advise students when considering your next step, you want to picture yourself at that university, at that lab in this program under a specific mentor professor. Can you have your best day there and can you have your worst day there? Because trust me, those worst days, those bad days are going to come, and you want to be somewhere where you feel supported, and that you have a good foundation and a good support system to help you get through those tough times. Grad school is a little bit more difficult than undergrad as everything is more concentrated, and it's really honing in on a lot of skills that you didn't have to use as an undergrad. And so I would say a good teller, or maybe like might show a bit of a red flag in your admission process, is how well supported are you as a prospective student? Are professors emailing you back? Have you connected with students that are in that program? What is the kind of like prospective student story look like? Because that's going to tell a lot about what your story is going to look like as a student there. If you're not getting emails back, if you're not getting responses or information as a prospective student, that's a telltale sign that those programs are busy, and they're not prioritizing things like that, and that might show what it will look like as a student. You might have to do things more independently and do a lot more of that research and workload on your own. And so for some people that might be a green flag. Maybe they like the more hands-off experience. So it's really going to just depend on you and what you're looking for.
Thank you. I also want to add that I also did the Equity and Social Justice program at SF State, and educational equity was a topic that I knew I wanted to pursue. And there are not that many programs out there, so my choices were fairly limited. But one thing I did make sure was, is the student body reflective of the principles I'm hoping for? Does the staff and faculty makeup also mirror what I'm hoping for? So, instance, if we're talking about educational equity, are the staff and faculty actually coming from diverse or underrepresented communities, right? Is it more theory versus praxis, right? So everyone's going to have their own things that they're looking for, but knowing what you want and also what you don't want is very important.
Can I
Next
add
question.
something
Oh
to
yeah,
this,
go ahead.
Julia? I'm so
Yes.
sorry. I did my master's in music here at SF State.
Do you want to introduce yourself first, Elisa?
Sorry. Yes, I got here a little late. I was finishing up with another student. My name is Elisa Cornejo Molina. I am an advisor here for SSS Trio within EOPP. I am an alumni from SF State. I did second BA work and then I did my master's. So I know a lot of the before and after and all these things. For answering this question specifically for smaller programs, an example to music, what Summer mentioned is who you're working with, because they are your mentor. And if you, let's say you like what they do, but it's in a very remote location, how are you going to get a job after? So one of the main things, example here at SF State, I picked this program, even though it was a smaller program, I would have employment while studying in a very big location as San Francisco. So that is another thing, connections while studying, because I have had peers that do their master's and it's a great program, but it's in the middle of like Kansas. And all they do is study. And then when they graduate, they have no prospects whatsoever upon graduation. So I guess that would be a red flag for me. So it all depends on what your red flag is.
Yeah.
That's one of the main things, who you're working with, and are there connections that you're going to be making regardless of the quality of the program.
Or the prestige, right? Just because it's a well-known institution doesn't mean your program is well-staffed, well-funded. What if they don't have any financial aid options for you and it's like a really expensive city? Like a lot of things you want to be aware of and considering where you're applying, and because each application costs money, be selective. Okay. As juniors and seniors, what can I do now to help me prepare when it comes to applying for grad school? Does the Division of Graduate Studies have resources that can help me with this process?
So we talked about it a little bit earlier. I think it was like a disclaimer in the beginning before we even presented. It's like, talk to your grad coordinator. This is so huge. I always tell students my best piece of advice is, once you do decide a couple of programs that you're interested in, reach out to the grad program coordinator, reach out to professors. A lot of schools will have on their websites, professors, students, a lot of PhD programs will have like the PhD candidates, emails and information. Reach out. You never know who's going to be willing to hop on a Zoom call, and ask that professor, ask that student, what does a day-to-day look like in this program? What can I expect? What skills helped you get into this program? A big one for psychology, that you could do in your junior and senior year is try to do a research assistant. Unfortunately, a lot of positions are unpaid, which is a huge barrier for students. And I hate this fact about psychology because it is like a really crucial step that helps people get into grad school. If you can, come alongside someone who's working on a thesis project, ask professors if they're working on any research project that you could just type in data for, a lot of things like that. That's going to make your CV stick out, is that you have that kind of foot in the door, you have that connection already, especially if it's something you're doing as an undergrad. That's a huge benefit.
Okay, the second part I can answer. This do we have resources that can help you with the process? Yes, we actually have a great advisor named Sarah Nelson who conducts workshops for prospective students. And if you go to our main website, grad.sfsu.edu, there's going to be a menu link that says advising, and just click on graduate advising and you will see all the workshops that she hosts, and she even recorded some of them. And you can look at the videos on our website. She has workshops on impressive graduate school application, how to, look at create your application for grad school, letter of recommendations and personal statement writings, and even how to submit a Cal State Apply application when you're ready to apply. And you can book an appointment with Sarah as well as our advising intern that we have every year. And they will definitely help you out. And another good resources for you right now to see what current grad students are doing, come check out our graduate students showcase, because the showcase, you're going to see all our grad students, what they're doing in their current research, just to kind of see what's out there and what students are now doing. I think that's next month.
What is a general timeline for grad school applications? For example, if I'm a junior, when should I start applying for grad school if I want to go straight into a master's program after graduation?
Okay, so if you're a junior right now, right, you're going to be graduating in May 2024. Okay, so fall 2024, if you want to start grad school for fall 2024, graduate applications actually open on October 1st of this year. So you could start applying to grad schools after October 1st. You just need to make sure you earn your degree if you get admitted by the time you start that program. And depending on the program, decisions will come either pretty early on, let's say in January, or it can come later on up until May of next year.
Some programs do have spring admissions, but it is not guaranteed whatsoever. So again, research, research, research. For instance, if you're applying to psych programs across the country, some schools may have a fall and spring admit, others not, just one time a year, right? So deadlines, you're going to want to start organizing them, maybe do a spreadsheet or a calendar or something like that.
I see a question in the chat that I want to answer. So is letter of recommendation mandatory? I don't want to bother people with these, like we're already paying for grad school. Why is it required? So letter of recommendations are required. Katrina mentioned a bit earlier when I was talking about the GPA, like don't super stress about the GPA, these programs are going to look at your application like holistically. And one of those factors is that letter of recommendation. That's going to be a huge aspect of your application because you're going to have these professors that you took courses with, that you did research under, write you letters of recommendation. And that kind of gives personality to your application, and more than just seeing like numbers and test scores. A lot of programs want to see, are you a good fit for this lab? Can you work well with others? Can you do research and take, different directions like that? So this letter of recommendation is going to be a huge component of your application. So make sure when you are asking, professors to write you letters of recommendation, you're asking a professor that you have a connection with. Another tip for juniors and seniors, like what to do now. Go to office hours. I cannot stress it enough. You're already, you're paying for that time. It's coming from your tuition. This is a resource for you. Go to your professor's office hours, get coffee with your professor, meet with your TAs. These are all connections that you're going to be able to ask for letters of recommendation. Professors know this, like this is part of their job to write these letters. Some of them will have templates that they fill out, or like they'll give students a questionnaire to fill out some answers so that they have specific things to write about. You can also, like if you're asking a professor to write you a letter of recommendation, provide them your CV, provide them your resume, your research experience, so they have something personal to put on your letter. Yes, someone in the chat, office hours are huge, huge, huge. I would emphasize that as like, if you take anything away from this, go to office hours.
And when it comes to letters of recommendation, I always recommend finding folks that actually, again, what Summer mentioned, you have a connection with, right? Just because they have a fancy title doesn't mean they're going to be the best fit for you to write you a letter of recommendation. What if they've only met you one time, right? Or they've never actually supervised you or seen the intention with which you work. So maybe instead, maybe a TA who has been with you from the beginning till end, or your EOP advisor who has been with you all these years, or a professor you really love who might not be your major advisor, but someone who you deeply admire or who has seen the hardship and the resilience that you demonstrate. Like it should be someone who's actually going to write a tailored letter for you and not just pull a template off of Google. And yes, Summer, professors love when students show up, because when I used to teach and I had office hours and no one came, I'd be real sad. It's a real lonely experience.
Yeah,
And
this is, sorry,
it's
go ahead and
real.
finish.
It's
It's such a
real.
good point though. Like, you had to go to your office hours. Professors have to be there. They have to be sitting in their office. TAs have to attend if it's on Zoom or in person. So you're not wasting anybody's time by going. The time is already being scheduled into their day. So definitely take advantage. You never know what perks and benefits might show up for that.
They can also refer you to someone else. Again, not every person you meet may be the best fit for you, whether it's an advisor, it's a mentor, it's a boss, whatever it is. Trust your gut, right? If this person doesn't work out, find someone else. You have to take the initiative in this regard.
Okay, sorry, one more point on the letters of rec. I see a question in the chat. What if we take a gap year? What if we take 2 years off and decide to go back to grad school later? How do we ask for a letter of rec? So this is really common. I would even say SF State, a majority of our grad student population are students who are coming back to school after a long time. So they go, Summer, like I'm really interested in applying. Can I use an employer as a letter of rec? And I always encourage students to try and find at least one professor that can write a letter. Even if you went to school 15, 20 years ago, it's gonna be strong to have a professor as a letter of rec. And so my encouragement, again, go to these office hours, build that foundation. I recently attended a conference, I think like last week, and who my professor was at, him and his wife. And it's been 4 or 5 years since I took class with that professor, and he remembered me and he remembered my name. And like, I definitely did not think he was going to remember me. He was funny too. He was like, "Oh, did I write you a letter for grad school?" And I was like, "No." Hide. But yeah, build those connections now. And if you are, going back, say it's 2 years in the future and you're emailing that professor, be kind to them in your email, give them a little like summary, like, "Hi, I'm so-and-so, I took your class this year, I got this grade," and,
Attach those old papers.
Attach, I had this, you do the legwork for them. Anything that's going to make their process easier for them to give you that, yes, I'll write you a letter of recommendation. And, I email some of my professors from bachelor's, and this is years and years ago, and they do remember, like they remember their students, and they're very willing to be letters of rec and for job references as well. So definitely like, don't shy away if it's been some time, "Oh, I haven't talked to this professor," and such. That's part of their job. That's something they get to do as a professor.
So the next question, is getting into grad school more difficult than getting into undergrad? What are things I should consider if I look for out-of-state programs? So I think these are two separate questions, but they could also kind of lead into one another. Some students apply to out-of-state programs because they think that they can expand the number of options that they have, right? But yes, part one, would anyone like to answer that?
Okay, I'll take this one. I think no one wants to answer because the answer is yes. It is more difficult to get into grad school than it is to get into undergrad. Like Katrina mentioned earlier, we're receiving hundreds of applications, and cohorts will be anywhere from 12 students to 20 students. So the odds are a little bit more difficult. Sorry, I think, okay. But yeah, what to consider if I look for out-of-state programs, you're going to want to look into what does the funding look like? What is the out-of-state tuition going to look like? You know, if you get into school out of state, but the out-of-state tuition cost is going to be astronomical, it might be beneficial to wait another year and apply again to programs in state, depending on what everyone's financial situation looks like. If you're applying out of state, you know, what does your resources look like? Are you going to have access to resources that you would have access to in state and things like that? So yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, also consider housing options. Is it something that's provided for you, or is it something that you're going to have to find on your own? Transportation, if you're living far from campus, how are you getting to campus if you're not already nearby or on campus? Yeah, there's a lot of things to consider when you're moving somewhere entirely. The cost of moving can also be substantial depending where you're moving to. So there's a lot of things to consider when you are out of state. Yeah.
Is it true that FAFSA doesn't cover grad school? And are there exceptions to this?
I'll take this one. So it's dependent on what you would define as financial aid. For a lot of us, financial aid is the free money that we get, the scholarships, the grants, the things that we don't need to pay back. For graduate school, there are less scholarships, less grant availability. What you're looking at are a lot of loans, or potential like jobs that you're working that will be paid to you that help you pay for your tuition. If you are open to considering loans, you could have the cost of your, at the very least, tuition and fees covered, but it wouldn't necessarily cover your other basic need costs: housing, food, transportation, books and supplies, things like that will be calculated into your cost of attendance, but might not be covered by the financial aid that you're willing to take out for your educational costs. So it kind of covers it, but not with the free money that we would all like it to be covered by.
There's a lot of hustling involved, which I know we're all used to.
Yeah.
But that's why asking questions is really important. What fellowships are there? Are there TA opportunities? What is there a stipend for grad students? All these things, like we want to start asking these questions because
Yeah.
sometimes, unfortunately, a program choice may come down to affordability only, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
something to consider for like when you're thinking out of state, for California, March 1st or March 2nd would be the priority deadline for financial aid applications. Is there a different deadline if you're applying out of state? Yeah, as far as the question in the chat, there are no 0% interest loans for grad school that when you submit your FAFSA, there is going to be an interest. You might want to check with your bank, your credit union to see if they have any type of special offer for an already established account. Like if you already have an account there with them, do they have any educational loans that you could take out for 0% interest? It's not likely, I'm going to be honest, but it's something that you could check on to see if it's available. And there is also an EOP scholarship for grad students.
So I shared a link in the chat. This is our funding your education page. There is a ton of resources on this page. There's a lot of links. So definitely click through it, do due diligence resource. There's like checklists. I'll put another link that is on this page already, but check out this resource, spend some time looking through it. You know, it's a lot of time to apply to scholarships and grants and things like that, but it'll pay off in the long run. So definitely this is a good time now as you're thinking about it to look into those things.
Can you talk more about funding options for graduate school, especially ones for low-income first-generation college or post-grad students? So specifically our EOP students, these are huge considerations for us when we're thinking about going to grad school. The first thing is it affordable? Can I even pay for it? So can we go over some of those options? I'm going to also pull up the resource guide. So we have that here. So Kim dropped in the chat earlier the PDF to this. We will finalize this. So check your email in about a week or so because we will send this out to all of EOP students. But Kim did a fantastic job of just putting all the funding opportunities possible on here. And we're just trying to make sure that you all know that if you want to go to grad school, there are ways for us to hopefully pay for it, but you do have to work. Okay, you have to research, you have to beg, borrow, and steal. You have to do all the things. Okay.
Yeah, I think a really popular one for SF State graduate programs specifically would be the academic works. So it is pretty common that the scholarships get offered, but no one applies. So that would be, as far as scholarships go, the very first resource that I would advise searching on. Institutional scholarships are listed there, as well as external scholarships. So again, a really great resource to see already vetted scholarships. So you're not applying for spam or scam organizations. Definitely get your FAFSA or California Dream Act submitted by that March 2nd deadline, again, specifically for California. You do want to check if you're thinking out of state for their specific deadlines. If you're thinking of going into teaching or working in the public sector, there are forgivable loan programs, but that would be after you've already borrowed the loans while you're going to school. During your graduate career, there are the options for graduate assistantships or teaching associate opportunities, but those are going to be offered solely by the department. So it's nothing that like we can specifically offer to students, but the department might be looking for graduate students to help with their courses. And then there are also fellowships. I think it's listed as a scholarship in academic works. I don't know if it's still listed as a fellowship, but for students who are pursuing the doctoral program, there's also a fellowship opportunity there. So I don't know if it covers the entirety of a student's costs while they're in the program as far as the fellowship goes, but you can always reach out to our fellowships contact for more information regarding that. So there are options to fund your education. Will it fund it entirely? It takes a lot of legwork to have it funded if you're considering all of your cost of attendance needs, like housing, food, books and supplies, transportation, all of that. Tuition and fees, with maybe less legwork, you could probably get that covered as long as you're trying to apply for those scholarships and submitting your applications on time. I don't know if Summer or Katrina, you want to add to any of that?
Yeah, I think the Graduate Equity Fellowship will be a good one. For if you're a California resident and you're interested in applying to SF State, definitely check out the Graduate Equity Fellowship. And also the program that you're interested in applying to, because that college usually have scholarships specifically for the students within that college.
And then I see now the employee benefits. So yeah, so if you're
Take it
employed,
away.
yeah, with the CSU, there is a fee waiver program as long as you're attending, I believe, a school within the CSU, you can get up to 6 units covered for the tuition. I think there's like $5 that you pay for like your student fees. There's also reduced tuition and fees with sister institutions. So like University of California could be one. You would want to check with your institution to see if they have their own like sister programs with other schools or where you happen to be working.
This is a huge perk that most
Yeah.
students do not know about, but we hype hella much at EOP because a lot of our EOP staff got their post-grad degrees while they were working here, right?
Yeah.
So for instance, some students right now that we've been, working with all these years, they are currently working as EOP advisors or working somewhere else on a different campus and taking advantage of this fee waiver program and pursuing a degree at the same time. I mean, you would also get state benefits, right? So a lot of perks with this. So if you don't mind or have the opportunity to work at a university that offers postgraduate degrees, check this out. There's also corporate ones, so companies will also often have benefits you can take advantage of. So there are some listed here like Google, Microsoft, Qualcomm, Comcast. A lot of these companies will pay for some, most, if not all of your postgrad degrees, especially if they build upon skills that you need for your job, right? Also working for the government. That's a huge perk as well. And veterans. So we do have a lot of veterans on campus. They're taking advantage of the GI Bill for undergrad, but a lot of folks don't know that it could also be extended to include graduate school programs. So these are other ways that we can also use different resources to fund our education aside from just scholarships, fellowships, graduate TA positions. Like there are so many different avenues, and you can see we got to get a little creative sometimes. But the opportunity for someone else to pay for your school is there.
Can I just say something? For any seniors who are interested in applying for fall 2023, reach out to me and I can give you an application fee waiver.
Y'all heard that, right? Y'all heard that, right? Thank you. And I do see that it's 1:04. So the last thing I want to go over while you all are here is on this resource guide, we also put Instagram accounts. So if any of the panelists or any of the students in this room have Instagram accounts that you recommend that students take a look at or also follow in terms of support through that post-grad journey, please put them here. I want to build this list to something magical, right? Because there's so many different resources out there, and technology is such a great way for us to connect outside of school as well. When I was going to grad school here, it was all like evening classes, right? 4 to 7, 7 to 10. School is basically cleared out by then, right? You don't have the same opportunity to get involved on campus or to have that support. And for me, I was like the only Southeast Asian in my program my first year. And it felt very lonely at times. So now there's all these other virtual spaces and individuals connecting online that are resources I wish I had when I was going through this whole process. So I'm hoping that we can build out this list a little bit more so that you all don't have to go through that emotional hustle. Okay. Okay, so did anyone not get access to the resource guide? Everyone have it? If not, Kim can drop it back in the chat. We do want to be mindful of our panelists' time. So since it's 1:05, I want to just end here and say thank you. But we will have the room open. So if you all have any other questions, myself and maybe a few other EOP staff members will stay behind. But thank you so much to Kim, Summer, and Katrina for taking time out of your busy schedule to come talk to us. This was so informative, and I know that so many of the students I meet with are at this crossroads, right? And so having the opportunity to pick your brain, but also hear your own experiences and also hear the questions that other students are asking is going to be so beneficial. So thank you so much.
And thanks for having us. I'm just going to drop my email if anyone wants to ask me personal questions. Feel free to email me. And yeah, thanks again for having us. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for having
everyone.
us. Bye.
And I don't know who KK is,
Oh.
but I will drop that in the chat as a PDF, or if Kim can drop that in.
Yeah, I just dropped it as a PDF.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. Take care.